It's time for 41 is the Mic, a weekly Chiefs podcast with Nick Jacobs of KSHB 41 and Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest. 41 is the Mic starts now.
Yes, everyone, you are here with 41 is the Mic. I don't know if I can muster up a welcome at 0-2, but you are here. I still welcome you, I guess. Matt Derrick, Chiefs Digest, alongside Emmy-nominated enthusiast Nick Jacobs from KSHB 41. Nick, I didn't think we'd be sitting here talking about an 0-2 Chiefs team.
I'm not stunned after the performance against the Chargers and what the offense was going to do in the first three drives, potentially four, was going to answer a lot of questions for me about who they were or weren't going to be in this game. So they at least had the field goal on the third drive, but they struggled to get in there when they needed to. They needed to get in the red zone and try to get it in the end zone and everything. So, I mean, you have 3 plays, 7 yards punt, 8 plays, 30 yards, missed field goal, 8 plays, 31 yards field goal. Then you finally had the touchdown. And, I mean, look, we know at the end of the day that the game came down to the early fourth quarter when the Chiefs were driving there on that 14-play drive. And when that happened, that turned the tide a little bit. So, we got a lot to talk about. Some will be positive, most of it not, but it'll be there either way.
Well, let's kind of start where you kind of started going down this road, which was the effort, because obviously coming out of that Chargers game, the question was, what's wrong with this team to come out as flat as they were, slow as they were, fall out to that 10-0 deficit? This case, this was a different effort. I mean, and particularly, I think on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, defense.
I mean, they came out fired up on defense for sure.
Yeah. Defense played a whole different ball game. Steve Spagnuolo was a determined man. Steve Spagnuolo was he was going to set the tempo. He was going to go out there and tell Jalen Hurts, this is how you're going to play. For the Eagles play callers, this is how it's going to go. And you guys are just gonna have to work around it. And it's, if you get in, the Chiefs were trying to keep them from getting in tush push situations for the most part, and they were able to keep them out of it for a lot of the game. But fourth quarter is when the tide turned on that one, and they were able to do it on a more regular basis. And one of the biggest things is Spagnuolo wanted to make Hurts uncomfortable from the start. And they wanted to attack him in a way that they honestly didn't in the Super Bowl. And they really wanted him to have a timer in his head that was getting the ball out before he was ready, that wasn't letting him survey the field like Justin Herbert was able to last week. And they were really locked in on making sure that they were the ones bringing the heat and setting the tempo and not the Eagles' offense.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into this too when we talk about the positives and negatives from both sides of the football. But, you talk about that effort and that energy. I mean, the Chiefs blitzed Jalen Hurts on 64% of his dropbacks, according to Next Gen Stats, which is a ridiculous percentage. And it served two purposes. I mean, one, obviously, it achieved what is Steve Spagnuolo's job, which is that any quarterback like Jalen Hurts, he wants to hem them in the pocket and force him to beat them with his arm. And Jalen Hurts had no chance of trying to outrun that blitz today. But the other part of the equation, I mean, obviously Jalen Hurts got rid of the football pretty quickly, but once again, I mean, the pressure wasn't really getting there. And other than the one coverage sack that Omar Norman Lott had in the second half, I mean, the Chiefs they weren't able to get the quarterback on the ground.
Yeah. Look at what I'll say to people is that I don't know if enough people are going to truly appreciate what that Chiefs defense was able to bring against an offensive line of that caliber. Because that Eagles offensive line is arguably one of the 2 best in the league. You can argue about some other ones if you want, but that is the staple of the Philadelphia Eagles' success is Jeff Stoutland and that offensive line. Doesn't matter who Howie Roseman gets, nameplates can change, but the results equal success every time in Philly. And Jeff Stoutland's a big part of that. Jeff Stoutland's been there for Chip Kelly. Jeff Stoutland's been there for Doug Peterson. He's been there for Nick Sirianni. He's been through, 3 or 4 offensive coordinators now that they've had in Philly during the Sirianni era alone, let alone whenever Doug Peterson was there and so on. Jeff Stoutland's like, he is the shepherd of why the Eagles have the success they do is because of the offensive line. And then they have the skill players around it that complement what that offensive line can do. But no matter what the circumstance or situation is, they have 5 guys on that offensive line that can lean on people. And when it matters, they can come up with the big plays in short yardage situation or whatever they need to do to win the ball game. So the Eagles have the NFL games come down to the line of scrimmage. How good a defensive line do you have? How good an offensive line do you have? If you have both of those, you're gonna do pretty well. If you at least have one of those, you're always going to give yourself a shot, no matter if you have a franchise quarterback or not. And then you have a franchise quarterback on top of it, you really aren't going to lose a lot of games in the NFL if you have all three of those. So that's what it comes down to. The game always comes down to the trenches, and on top of it, the franchise quarterback. And you saw today that one sideline's trenches was able to come away with a victory.
Yeah, and I think we can both agree effort was and showing up wasn't a problem on the defensive side of the football. I mean, I honestly don't think effort was the issue on the offensive side either. I mean, I don't think that this offense came out unemotional or flat. It wasn't the same offense that showed up in Brazil against the Chargers. I mean, this offense at least had more fire than they had the other night. Had last week on Friday night.
Certain parts, yes. Certain parts, no.
Well, maybe we get into there then when we start talking about the good and the bad from both of these sides. Let's start with the offense, and let's start with something positive. Let's each of us try to take a moment to say one nice thing about the offense today.
All right, Matt, you go first.
Okay, well, most of the game, Patrick Mahomes played really well. We'll talk about maybe some moments that he didn't, but I thought he played really well. And then I'm starting to run out already, Nick.
I hate that for you, Matt.
Do you have more?
I'll give you a couple of situations and circumstances, then we'll go from there. So first off, Mahomes and Tyquan Thornton being able to connect there towards the end. That was a big one because the Eagles had multiple blown coverages against Thornton because of how deep they were playing in some of their zones. And the Chiefs were able to take full advantage of it, and they finally figured out how to take advantage of it, and the offensive line gave enough time for them to take advantage of it. So it was there, and Mahomes was finally able to connect on probably one of the four that he wanted against what they were doing coverage-wise and how little respect they were showing for Thornton. So there's that on that aspect of it. So that's a positive. When Mahomes is able to hit Kelsey in stride, and I mean, like, he's running on a crosser at full speed, boom, catches it, runs, turns up field, then they had some success there too a handful of times. But it's a matter of Mahomes catching Kelsey in stride and not having to readjust his arm angle or having to readjust something on that front for that to be successful and sustainable. Kareem Hunt had a couple of good runs when the opportunities became available. So you have that aspect of it. Defensively, the Chiefs hit hard. They were physical, and they really tried to set the tempo as best as they could most of the time collectively as a unit. So on all those aspects, I thought they did a solid job. Noah Williams had a couple times where he either didn't know where the football was or he was able to avoid a couple pass interference calls that some officiating crews would have thrown and really kind of turned the tide of the game on a couple of them. So all that combined, those are some of the positives you can kind of take away from it. But there's definitely a lot of room for improvement, and they're going to be facing a very good defensive line this upcoming week that is not going to be far off from the caliber of the Eagles, if maybe not better. And what they put on tape today in the offensive line, they're going to see that for a couple weeks. And the Chiefs better have answers, or Patrick's going to be having to get rid of the ball quicker than he wants.
Yeah, and a couple of things you mentioned, I do have to echo. Travis Kelce, this game is going to be remembered and defined for the drop that turns into the interception. He had a couple of other really nice plays. I mean, that catch, at the ball really below his knees that he catches and rips up field, that was really one of the Chiefs' best offensive plays for about 3/4 of the game. So that was big. And hey, shout out to Josh Simmons for the 18.38 miles per hour that he ran to save a touchdown, because that was. I mean, that fired me up, Nick. I mean, I could never run that fast at my best point in my life.
Not with that attitude.
Torn patella or not. So I think that might answer any and all questions that at least I have about the health of Josh Simmons. If he's able to chase down a guy like that, chase down a linebacker 18 miles an hour, I think I'm okay with how Josh Simmons is health-wise. And Kareem Hunt had a nice run. Other than that, Isaiah Pacheco's longest run was 7 yards. That was frustrating. The fact that the Chiefs' run game again just can't get out of neutral. There are holes there on occasion. I mean, there were a couple of times that I felt like the run game just chose poorly, but I mean, we're going to be talking about things that the Chiefs have to change. I mean, at this point, Nick, I need to see something different. I don't care if it's Brashard Smith. I don't care if it's Elijah Mitchell. There needs to be a speed infusion to this backfield because they just have nothing right now. The fastest guy in this backfield is Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, he's the only guy rushing the football. Like look, when are you ready to shift gears? Is this where you want to shift gears now?
We can shift gears if you're ready.
Okay, we're gonna shift gears. All right, there we go. Look, here's the first thing I'm gonna say, and I'm just gonna hit this point pretty hard right now. Your offensive line is a concern. Patrick got uncomfortable a lot today. He did his best to stay in the pocket, but what the Eagles were starting to do in this football game is they were deliberately blitzing. Because they wanted to contain him in there and really disrupt his ability to take off and either scramble or take off and buy time and try to create. Where the Eagles, in my opinion, were given the flats. Brashard Smith should have eaten today. And by eating, I mean he should have had 6, 7 catches out in the flats. Let that guy shake. Let that guy move. If you got to use a wide receiver out in the open field like Hollywood Brown in the flats, do it. If you got another receiver on that team that you need to have kind of work out of the backfield and get the ball to him, do it. I thought I was going to see more 2, 3 tight end sets because you got 4 of them on the team. Maybe you should use them. And if you can't run the ball, put more blockers on the line. That's an idea for the suggestion box. If you're listening out there right now, One Arrowhead Drive, I know some of you are. So what I'm saying for the suggestion box is it's time to get physical. It's time to stop playing around. The offensive play calling that you're doing right now, I've seen it for 3-4 years now. This offense is turning into the greatest hits. It's turning into the short yardage situation, do the spin-a-rooney and hand off to the fullback and let him kind of cut across the grain. There was a couple times when they brought Kareem Hunt back and put him 7, 8, 9 yards back to give the offensive line a little bit more time to set up those blocks and everything. They were doing that stuff with Jamal back in 2013, 14, 15. So everything I have seen for a decade now almost, whether it's Patrick or Alex Smith doing it. The Chiefs had a moment in 2015 when their backs were against the wall, and I'm going to look it up here real quick to see exactly when it was that they had that moment, because they dropped and they were at one point, they won the first game, then they lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They were 1-5 before they knocked off all those wins and got to beat the Texans and then lost to the Patriots. But the Chiefs had to refigure out who the heck they were because things were not working back then. So they made the choice that, hey, let's do what works Alex Smith can scramble with the football. They rebuilt their blocking scheme. They did a lot more combo blocks. They did a lot more double teams, and they turned it into a strength, and they focused on what their offensive line was capable of. This offensive line, I'm telling you, there are a lot of guys on there that are power run blockers, that are guys that if you let them double together, they will knock somebody off the line of scrimmage and get second level. But you have to start giving them those opportunities. You have to start getting a physical line. You want to know why your team doesn't have an identity and why I'm asking you those questions in press conferences? I'm asking you those because I don't see physicality on the football field. And that is what I want to see if you're going to pay $20 million here, $20 million there, $20 million there, second round pick, first round pick. You've invested in the spot. Now you have to actually do something that is going to result in wins. I don't want to see a fourth down play where I got three guys in a full house in the backfield and I've got a defensive end that's essentially got a wide 9 angle, can come down to where the tight end's at. And at the time Kareem Hunt is getting the snap, the tight end has already been blown up. And you've got a center coming out to pull and to try to kick out a guy that's got a full steam of speed at an angle and hope that he's going to somehow magically make that block against a very fast defensive end that's got that angle. So you already blew up that play in the backfield before it even really started. And you had an offensive lineman that I saw two offensive linemen. So Jawan Taylor that was anticipating that tackle to be a little bit to not come as quickly as he did. So he's just trying not to hold, but try to stand in his way. And there just isn't that fire off from Jawan there that ear holes the cat and takes him to the sideline. So that is called fire. That is called passion. That is what your offensive line coach needs to be conveying. And when I have to ask questions last year in the press conference and say to him, well, he's talking about, he's talking about you do some zone here, you do some run blocking there, you do a little this, do a little bit of that. I need you to be good at something. I need you to work at something relentlessly and be good at it, because I don't need you to be less than competent at 5 different things. I need you to have something you can lean on when times are not good, when the offensive play calling isn't working. You can lean on this, run some people off the ball, and take them to church and score some touchdowns. Eagles can do that. They did that. They're going home with a win. They're going home 2-0 because they take the proper time to invest in the attitude that you need to play ball.
There's nothing to add, Nick. I mean, you've nailed it. This offensive line needs that kind of fire, for crying out loud.
They've needed it for a long time. They don't have it. And I'm not knocking the players on this. Let me be clear about that.
And I'm going to go to a play sequence because it comes to me something that Andy Reid mentioned in his press conference. And one of the things that he mentioned about the things that were on him, and one of the things he said I patently disagree with, which was that one of the things he said was that he was too aggressive. And I mean, honestly, Nick, the only thing that I can possibly think that he's even referring to is simply going for it on 4th and 1 from his own 36, which is not in normally his wheelhouse. I mean, he went for a 4th down on his side of the 50 last week against the Chargers. It worked. In this situation, they went for it. They had a pass on 3rd down that was incomplete. Go for it on 4th down to Kareem Hunt. And I mean, I didn't think either one of those plays were particularly aggressive, Nick, because, I mean, the pass, I mean, we've seen the Chiefs pass on 3rd down before and put themselves in these situations. And then the handoff to Kareem, there wasn't really anything aggressive about it. It was about the most predictable run from Kareem that you're ever going to see. If anything, they were probably more aggressive when they picked up the 1st down later in the game on what was essentially a fullback counter to Kareem when they had both him and Pacheco in the backfield. I thought that was pretty pedestrian. And we know the Chiefs were going up against the team, Nick, that would have just been physical and lined up and done the tush push on 2 snaps that they had to get the 1st down. And that is one question I have to ask, because it was brought up today once again, which is that can the Chiefs continue to just simply not run a quarterback sneak because of something that happened 6 years ago?
So here's the reality I'm going to give to you.
Lay it on us.
I personally would never run a quarterback sneak with Patrick Mahomes. And
Would you run one with Gardner Minshew? We know they'd run one with Blake Bell.
So here's the kicker. You have to have blocking that can actually move somebody. So until you're gonna have your center guard together, block together at the point, your guard tackle block at the point, until you're gonna get a jumbo package and just relentlessly put enough people to move some people off the line, until you're willing to do that, and until you're willing to have either one-on-one, I'm gonna drive block you all the way to the field goal post, and you have that mentality. Doesn't mean you're going to physically do it, but you have that mentality and you have that drive. Until you have that mentality, until you have that type of just fire and passion, it doesn't matter what you do. It really doesn't. You can do the razzle dazzle, you can do the finesse, you can do all that over and over again. You can run the spin-a-rooney, fullback dive, you can run all that. But I'm just telling you, here's my concern in the grand scheme of it. At some point, you've invested in this offensive line at levels that other NFL teams don't, whether it's financially, draft pick wise, whatever. And they shouldn't be playing. They shouldn't have the issues that they do. And you've got arguably the most valuable piece of any franchise in the league in Patrick Mahomes. That guy goes out there, wills this football team every single week when they aren't up to it, and just tries to take over a game. And there are times when that guy is back there, and the times he had to change his arm angles today, the times he had to try to move around in the pocket, like he's doing everything he can to stay in the pocket and do what they're asking him to do. He's trying to be the good soldier. He's trying to do everything the way that they're coaching, the way that they're asking, but it's not working out. And I'm getting closer and closer to a point where I'm like, Patrick needs to do whatever the heck he's got to do to keep himself healthy. And he did, and he's had to do that a couple of times this year, and he's had to do it a couple of times last year, to where, yeah, he may throw it in the dirt, but he didn't get laid out by that corner that was getting ready to come, and maybe season ending. He's not getting taken out by this guy or that guy. So it's just, there are teams in this league that desperately wish they had somebody of Patrick Mahomes' caliber and would do everything in the world to protect having a player of that caliber. And there's just times where I watch this football team and I feel like far too often they take for granted the golden goose that they have under center.
Well, and that's the reason why, by and large, that I'm not ready to hit a panic button yet. I was asked earlier, tonight, hey, what if the Chiefs, especially if they go to New York next week and go to 0-3, which is entirely possible because the Chiefs have gone to New York and just laid an egg on a number of occasions, so it's entirely possible. But if they're 0-3, what's your level of panic on a scale of 0 to 10? And I'm assuming that Chiefs fans, for the most part, are going to be around the 9. Maybe some are going to be like an 8-5, maybe a 9-5, maybe some will all be all the way to 10. I'm going to be lower than that because I remember that you've got Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback. You could be the 7th seed in the playoffs. And as long as you're in the playoffs, this guy can take you to the Super Bowl. So you're right. That is what it's about. It's about keeping him healthy. So I mentioned New York, Nick. Chiefs going there next to try and avoid going to 0-3. What are your concerns heading into the game next week?
So here's where I'm gonna push back on you a little bit.
Go for it.
With that, that's part of the mentality. As long as you have, it's part of the mentality that's causing the problem. As long as you have Patrick, everything's gonna be fine. As long as you have Patrick, everything's gonna be okay. But the other part of the mentality is, well, you don't have Rashee Rice right now. Well, you don't have Xavier Worthy right now. Right. But you knew at some point Rice was going to be getting suspended. And that's why you drafted Jalen Royals, in my opinion, for the most part. And that's why you have Juju Smith-Schuster to help brace for the time he wouldn't be there. Then you bring back Hollywood Brown, who, let's be honest, like he's not going to probably play a full 17-game season. He's going to get hurt. He's going to have some issues here and there. May miss some snaps, may miss some games, but like, that is what it is. And then Worthy got great speed, tough guy. But like there's a certain amount you don't want to expose him to from a hip perspective, because it's going to cause you some problems. And when he comes back from that shoulder thing, you're going to be holding your breath on a lot of different catches, a lot of hits. If he falls on that, I'm going to be holding my breath on all that. But there's O-line that makes the ultimate difference. But then there's also, what do you have skill-wise that can win their matchups? Do you have enough guys that can win their skill matchups? Does the quarterback trust it? How much trust is there from a play calling perspective to a quarterback perspective to the skill player perspective? And all those got to be in sync for it to be successful, or enough of them got to be in sync to be able to win a football game. So the kicker of it is you want to be able to lean on your offensive line. You want to be able to lean on your run game. When people get frustrated why the Chiefs don't have the success in the red zone that they should, it's because you don't have a run game that can sustain inside the 20. You can't lean on people to be able to get in. You got to razzle dazzle. You got to create misdirection, do all that stuff. But the league's seen all that for over a decade now between Alex Smith and Patrick. So you're not going to have the same razzle dazzle ability that you did before. So at some point you got to decide if you want to be able to lean on people or if you want to keep trying to finesse, but you find out what happens when you finesse.
And that brings me back to, hey, what is part of the issue right now? Part of the issue right now, I think, is the fact that, you've been playing with without two or three of your top wide receivers. And going into this game, you knew exactly what the case was. And look at the defensive side of the football. Steve Spagnuolo lost Mike Dana and Christian Fulton in this game.
Yep.
Ashton Gelati and Noel Williams step up. And Noel Williams, by the way, will have one of the best defensive plays of the day in breaking
Omar Norman Lott
Devontae Smith. And Omar Norman Lott gets to play his first game. He picks up a big sack. There's three young guys playing, and two of them didn't know they were going to play as much as they did today, but they had to step up and be next man up. Nothing changed on the offensive side. You went in with exactly the players that you knew you were going to have the entire day. And you had a game plan that I don't think was built for any of them. I think it was exactly the game plan that you would have built with Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy and Jalen Royals. Yes. And it's just a bunch of square pegs and round holes out there today. Nothing about this game plan was designed for the talent that they had on the field.
That is the perfect nail on the head there, Matt. Because that there's times, I'm not kidding you, where I'm like, hey, you guys do know you don't have Tyreek anymore, right? Like, you're aware that Tyreek's in Miami. Because I'm still seeing a lot of Tyreek Hill type stuff, and you don't have that level of speed out there right now. So, look, I mean, there was a time where you could lean on Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and Chris Jones to really kind of help carry it through and, and let Patrick crush it the way that he's going to and will the team, and those guys could stand up in those moments. But right now, you don't have Rashee Rice. He's a big part of that offense. Like you said, you don't have Xavier Worthy threatening deep on stuff. So you got to adjust. You got to pivot. You got to do something a little bit different. Maybe that means your O-line's got to lean on people. Maybe that means you got to have a 2-3 tight end set and try to run over some people. Maybe you get crazy and you have 3 tight ends out there in a bunch formation. But, like, you got to do something different. Like, it is what it is, man. And, like, the fact they haven't used Brashard Smith as much as they need to, like, that in itself is like, okay, all right. If you guys apparently you guys got to get to 1-5 again like you did in 2015 to decide, maybe we try something different.
And I'm not saying that either one of these guys were Tyreek Hill as a rookie in 2016, but Nick, I was up there in training camp. I saw Robert Tonyan and Brashard Smith carving up this Chiefs defense day in and day out on a fairly steadily basis. And I'm talking relatively speaking here. I'm not talking about, like I said, they weren't Tyreek Hill out there, wasn't that dominant, but those two guys were making plays every single day. And when I was watching that, Nick, I had one of two thoughts. My thought was either this defense is in trouble because it can't stop Robert Tonyan and Brashard Smith, or two, these guys are good players. Neither one of them are getting any snaps right now. And that baffles me because this team needs an infusion of something. And I know that it's not more Travis Kelce, because bless his heart. And this is from somebody who all along I've said, I think Travis Kelce is capable of having a better year than he did last year. But the key is load management, because he cannot play a 21 game season playing the 70% of the odd snaps that he played last year. It's not going to happen. And you're seeing it now. If you're at the game today and you were watching Travis Kelce when he wasn't on camera and wasn't on the field, you were watching a guy that was moving in slow motion sometimes. And I'm not saying it's moving in slow motion on the field, but I'm talking more like, looks like Willie Roaf when the game's not in play. Travis can still get it done. He is still a productive player. He just can't do what he once did. And I don't think that there's an acknowledgement either from Travis or the coaches that that's the case. And until you get that, you're going to continue to see I think spurts and struggles, because this team right now is offensively is disjointed.
Yep. I wish I had something better for you, but I really don't. But like I said last week in the podcast, I would wait till they're finished with the Ravens game to come to my final conclusion on where they're at this year. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. But these next 2 weeks are going to tell you a lot. They're going to tell you a lot about where this football team's going, where it's headed. And, right now it looks like they put a lot of their eggs in the Rashee Rice basket. And with his suspension, Patrick doesn't have him to be able to kind of carry him through some parts of it while everybody else figures it out.
Well, next week, going to New York, Nick, going to be on KSHB 41 for Sunday Night Football. Very excited about that. And based on what I saw today from the Giants versus the Cowboys, as long as they don't allow Russ to go like 10 of 10 on deep ball throws, they can be fine. Russell had an incredible day throwing the ball deep, but that was all the Giants have.
Well, I'm going to look here real quick. Okay, no, it ends after this one. That's good. Because the Chiefs are basically playing the Dallas Cowboys opponents from the week before in back-to-back weeks. So they played the Eagles week 1, and then they played the Giants today. So the Chiefs are getting the Cowboys opponents in back-to-back weeks after them. So luckily they start playing more of the NFC, so the Chiefs will, get to have something a little bit different there. I'm curious. I do need to double-check. I think the Ravens the Ravens are playing the Lions before they play the Chiefs, so that'll be interesting. But anyways, Chiefs Giants will be on KSHB 41 this Sunday. Our pregame show starts at 5:00, and then we will have post-game once it's over, and then Sunday sound off after that. So you'll be able to tune in to KSHB 41 to see if the Chiefs can conquer their first win of the 2025 season.
Very exciting, Nick. I know we'll all be tuned in. And we will be here on 41 is the Mic. Talk about that one once again. Tuesday night, hopefully, Nick, you have time to join us for the Chiefs Digest Q&A live stream on YouTube. We'll be doing another episode on Thursday. I have an invitation out for a special guest, but I don't want to spoil it yet. But if I get a positive, then we'll have a guest on Thursday. Can't beat our guest from Thursday with Mick Schaefer coming in to join us. So that was a lot of fun. I appreciate Mick for joining that. So everybody have a great week. Bounce back from this win. Enjoy yourselves. We're going to be back, Chiefs, Giants, next Sunday night, KSHB 41, and we'll be talking about it here on 41 is the Mic.
You've been listening to 41 is the Mic, presented by KSHB 41, your home of the Chiefs and Chiefs Digest.